cuddling is usually like part of the activities, but it's not like the only thing that happens.
Hello, my name is Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. So, be absolutely honest with me. When was the last time that you went out and got properly messy? And follow-up question, do you have a go-to place where you feel you can just let loose and have a rollicking good time without fear of judgment or reprimand? I don't know why I said reprimand. That's a bit of a fancy word. Anyway, if you answered yes to any of the above questions, I think that you are going to enjoy hearing about this week's bar, Badlands, which was in the heart of San Francisco's Castro district. And although our guest, Neil Higgins from the FMKLit Podcast, only ever went to the bar once, he certainly knows a thing or two about getting messy. In this episode, we talk all about finding where it is you think you fit in, what to do when you come across a handsome man crying on the footpath, and one of my favorite subjects of all time, crappy cartoons from the 80s.
I met a friend in San Francisco, like when I first moved to San Francisco, who was also from a similar town, and a place called Bakersfield. And is like, well, Bakersfield just wasn't big enough for my ball gown. I'm like, I like that. I like that life approach.
Do you have a similar alliterative statement about your hometown then?
Oh, maybe.
Here, I can help you figure it out. What's your hometown's name?
It's Riverside.
Riverside, okay. Roller skates? Okay, we'll come back to this.
Okay. Something like Riverside wasn't set up for my sass, or Riverside couldn't fit my fabulous.
But it's not alliterative. It has to be alliterative.
I know.
Riverside couldn't rankle your... No. Giving up on that one immediately. I'm not even going to try and finish it. Okay, anyway, sorry.
So, yes, I wanted to leave my hometown, but I wanted to stay in California because I was born and raised here, so I don't understand weather. I don't get it. It frightens me. And then, obviously I wanted to go to a big city and a city that had a thriving queer community.
High density of gays.
And so that was LA or San Francisco, and I don't like LA, so.
And so what was the plan when you got there?
Well, I started college here, so that was 5 years taken care of. But, I did the whole thing. I lived in the dorms freshman year, like a very quintessential experience. Except, it wasn't a college town. There was a whole other city out there. And I didn't go out a lot because, of course, like all the fun stuff, you have to be at least 21 here.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So my first couple of years were finding 18 and overnights and like house parties and things like that. And then I didn't really date or hook up a lot those first couple of years. I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Oh, God. But you were in college. What?
I know.
Ah.
One, I have, we'll say, anxieties about like being the one to initiate.
Ah, okay.
It's gotten better, but definitely when I was 18. Because growing up, I was used to, especially in high school, only knowing like 2 other queer people at a time.
Yeah.
So then going to the Castro was very intimidating. And then also, this was the early mid-aughts. And at the time, who was attractive and who wasn't was not me. And then also just like very, very rigid.
Yeah.
And I feel like back then too, there was a lot more emphasis on like masculinity and being butch and all of that. And that does still exist, but I feel like there are more places you could exist outside of that. It's easier to find people who appreciate you wherever you land on the butch femme spectrum. And then when I turned 21, I was like, okay, let's go to the bars. And I'm like, I don't know what bar I'm supposed to go to because it's kind of true still, but especially then it was like, okay, in the Castro, there's like the 2 bear bars, the couple Twinkie bars. It just felt like you needed to find the bar where people were looking for the type of person that you are if you wanted to like get laid or meet someone or anything like that. I was like, where's the bar version of the Island of Misfit Toys? I feel like that's where I belong.
What is the Island of Misfit Toys? Is this something I should know?
It's from this like claymation movie about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from like the 60s.
Oh,
or like
okay.
stop motion. And he ends up at the Island of Misfit Toys, where it's like all the toys that nobody wanted, so they all live together on a little island.
That reminds me of this British cartoon from the 80s, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but I'm going to explain it to you, so sorry, you're just going to have to pretend that you're interested. Called The Raggy Dolls. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, so it's this TV show that was about these dolls that when they were on the manufacturing line, like something went wrong with their production, so they were thrown into the reject bin, and then they all kind of made friends and then went on adventures together. And so like one of them, their head was on back to front. One of them, their limbs kept falling off. One of them had the wrong dress on. I don't know why they couldn't have just put a different dress on her, but they threw her into the reject bin. And then like the best bit of it all, to just demonstrate how utterly xenophobic the British are, one of the dolls came out French. And so he was thrown into the bin.
I love this idea. Like everything else I can understand, and then just like, oh, there was some weird hiccup in the machine that it like gave him a beret and a little mustache.
Oh no, he
and
has a baguette. Get rid of him. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, sorry, just made that about myself. So was there no bar that was just like everyone is welcome here?
Yes. And it took me a while to find them, but I think it also, the cause of the I don't know what bar I'm supposed to go to is like I kind of had this, as I was coming into my queerness, I was like, well, what type of gay am I? I'm too femme to be a bear. I'm too bearish to be a twink.
Too femme to be a bear?
Which I don't feel now, but I definitely did at the time.
Okay.
Because like images of, and also my exposure to the bear culture at the time, at least here, was very like, there's a really big overlap with the leather culture, and it was like the Butch Bear Daddies.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not me. I feel like that's not where I belong. So I sort of wandered about in a haze, just like, where do I belong? It wasn't until years later that someone was like, I revealed to him, I was like, oh yeah, I've been talking to this guy on the app. And he's like, oh yeah, he's a friend of mine. You're totally his type. And I was like, what is that? It's like squishy Femme Bear. And I was like, oh, I feel seen, a revelation.
And so is that how you identify now?
I think so, yeah. And I've come to realize or there's been sort of like a change in culture that like there's more room for the squishy Femme Bears in the bear community here. Or maybe I was just projecting, I don't know. But it's more about, and I feel like this has always been the case, it's more about like a body type as opposed to sort of like a whole way of life or whatever.
Wait, so you think it's more about the way you look externally than the way you actually are?
I think so. I mean, for good or for ill, you can sort of unpack that how you want. It's more about like, oh, if you have a certain type of body, then you're invited to identify as a bear, as opposed to having to like, it's not about like, these are the things that we find desirable and attractive, and that's what you also need to find desirable and attractive, and this is how you present yourself and all of that.
Wait,
if
what?
that makes any sense.
No, sorry. I think I'm losing. So are you saying that there is kind of like a wide bucket within which you fit and there's no prescriptive behavior or wants or likes that you need to have? Or are you saying the opposite? Okay, you're saying that.
No, I'm saying, yeah. I'm a professional communicator.
Sorry, it's me. It's me.
You know, like I'm only speaking to my experience, but though it's something I have found, because of the apps, I'm on several, but I'm also on Growler, which is for bears and bears enthusiasts. And I have found that on that app, people tend to be friendlier and everybody just wants to fucking cuddle. which is great.
It's great. What?
Yeah.
Ugh. See, I can't get with this. When someone's like, I don't know you and I don't want to hook up, can we just cuddle? I'm like, no.
Well, it's not just cuddling. There are other things involved, but like cuddling is high on the list.
Cuddling is kind of intimate.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I agree.
And so just cuddling with a rando, like...
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe it's just that somebody's like, I really love cuddling up front. It's like, oh, they're probably like a safe, warm person to cuddle with.
Oh, okay. So have I just jumped to conclusions that you go on cuddle dates?
Yeah.
I'm trying to grill you on it.
Cuddling is usually like part of the activities, but it's not like the only thing that happens.
Is this like when people say to me on the apps, like, I'm looking for fun? And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by fun? And they're like, fun. And then I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I know. I hate that too. Or like, hey, what do you into? Top. That's it? That's all? I need more, personally. That's the worst.
Well, it depends how you feel that day, I guess.
Very true.
Yeah, I hate this euphemistic approach to it. Like, hey, let's have fun.
What would you rather people say?
Well, and yeah, I understand the criticisms that people have about those that have their complete shopping list and are like, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, because that takes the spontaneity and that takes the fun out of it. But like somewhere in the middle, you know, these are the types of things that I enjoy and I'm happy to go on a journey with you.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Or I also appreciate like, so right now I'm in the mood for blank.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm not in the mood for that right now, but I also like this other thing. And they're like, oh, yeah, I like that too. So maybe next time kind of thing. Or yeah, it does, save time if people are very upfront about things. But I agree that it's a bit, I don't know. I like having a little bit of mystique about it, about just like, oh, hey, how's it going? Instead of like, hey, bend over.
Well, yeah. And I mean, the whole thing about pre-agreeing what you're going to do before you meet up is so strange because your chemistry might then dictate that something else is going to happen. But I do much prefer that someone is like, this is my limit, this is my thing, because then at least you know what lines to color within. I just hate when they're like, oh, yeah, I'm totally verse. And then you get there and they just got their ass in the air. And you're like, well, you could have just said this.
I believe that every queer person has like 3 or 4 queer powers.
Only that many?
At least 3 or 4.
Okay,
we'll
all right, cool.
One of mine is making people switch suddenly. It has happened multiple times that I'll talk to a guy and he'll be like, oh yeah, I totally want to top you. I totally want to top you. And then I show up and then almost immediately he bends over. Or it's like, yeah, I want you to fuck me. I want you to fuck me. And then I show up and pretty soon and he's like, no, I'm going to fuck you now. And I'm like, okay, listen.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I don't mind, but one of those directions involves more preparation on my part. So that's happened to me multiple times and it's just been interesting and sometimes very frustrating.
It is, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I can't say I have much experience of the latter, but I have a lot of experience of the former, where it's like, oh, yes, you're not a top. or you're at least not a top this evening, and let's go. But yeah. Anyway, shall we go back to not knowing where you fit within the scene? And the thing I was going to say about that was I fortunately grew up in a small city. And so there was only one bar, there was only one club that I could go to. So I never had that thought. I just was like, yeah, this is where I go. And then when I moved to London in my early 20s, I was like, I don't know. I think I had this thing in my mind because I kind of like, was running away to the UK and I was like, they're going to understand me there. It's all going to make sense. So I never thought that people wouldn't understand me. I just was like really naive and thought like, I'm going to make sense to every single person I meet. And
everyone's going to love me.
Yeah, and threw myself into the scene and quickly discovered that wasn't the case. But I didn't ever have that kind of internal dialogue or existential crisis about my place until it was too late.
Like, maybe I should have been thinking about that. Yeah, and I feel like if I had stayed in my hometown, I would have had a similar experience because I would have just been like, oh, Friday nights are at VIP Lounge and Saturday nights are at Menagerie, and that's how we do.
But Riverside couldn't, I was going to say rim, couldn't, we will get there. We'll figure it out. It'll come to me. Anyway, so sorry. So you would have had that experience in Riverside, but you were in San Francisco. Did you have like friends? Sorry.
I didn't have any friends. No, actually, it was a long time before I had queer friends to sort of like help me out and tell me which bar to go to or invite me out with them. And then I think too, as I grew up, my intention for going to bars changed. Like at first, because this was, before the apps, the closest thing we had was adamforadam.com, which you had to use on your computer. So I would log in and then like go to school and come back to see how many messages I had that day kind of thing. But it was location based and I lived very far away from anything that anybody would want to go to.
Oh, but that's awful. Did you often have messages when you got home or was it nothing?
Sometimes.
Okay.
On a good day.
You know when you leave your phone at home and then you like go away and you're, oh shit, I left my phone at home. And then when you get home, you're like, oh, I'm sure there's all these messages that I've missed. And then there's nothing. And you're like, oh.
And then there's like, oh, nobody loves me. Nobody missed me. Yeah, I'd sometimes get messages. But yeah, when I first was going out, the most important thing was to like meet someone to like hook up or to start to date, whatever. And then like second to that was have fun with my friends or whatever. Whereas now I just want to like hang out, and invariably I end up sort of like chatting with someone, and it usually is just us being silly while waiting for our drinks or whatever. And that's perfectly fine. That's a lovely experience.
But so when did that flip for you?
Probably in my like later 20s. I think when I had like more queer friends, and it was just like, oh, when we were hanging out, with just the queers, then you go to a queer bar or something. I mean, like if you go to a bar, you go to a queer bar. And so then it became the place of like, oh, that's where I go and hang out with my friends, or like, oh, I'm doing something in the Castro later tonight, so I'll just like stop at a bar because it's happy hour, have a drink, sort of wave to people or whatever, and then go do my thing. And yeah, I much prefer it this way. I feel a weight lifted.
It's
like a weight lifted. It was interesting. I remember with the advent of Grindr and Scruff and Growler and all of them, I remember reading an article that was basically like people were like, well, obviously gay bars are going to die because you only go to them to have sex, and now you don't even need to leave your house. And that obviously didn't happen because there are still gay bars out there. And I feel like the vibe at them is very different. And again, maybe it's just me, but like I feel like when I'm at gay bars now, they're less cruisy. I mean, certain bars still are, but like the bars that I go to feel less cruisy. It's more just like, people hanging out, having fun.
Yeah, because they now feel a different need.
Yeah, now it feels a social need as opposed to like a place to find a hookup.
It is hard to know, though, because of you being older now, right? Like, and you having different priorities yourself. So you're looking at things through a different filter. Because I was going to say, like, from what you were talking about earlier, my experiences when I first started going out in the scene and when I was still new to being around homosexuals was like, I was in such a rush. And I was in such a rush to like fall in love and to be in a relationship because I was like, this is it. Like I've been waiting all this time and I've been suppressing this part of myself for so long. And now I get the opportunity to fall in love and to be understood and to find someone who gets me. And I think that just kind of gets a bit muddy. It gets a bit muddy. Because you're like rushing into intimacy with someone because you think that means that they're going to understand you quicker.
Yeah. I think too, it's this sort of validation.
Yeah.
Because growing up, I mean, I don't know entirely about your experience, but growing up when I did, where I did, homophobia was very real and being queer was very sort of like counterculture. And, you know, like I was in college when same-sex marriage became a thing here in California and then later the country. So, you know, for like my formative years, it's like, oh, I'm so very other. And then I think there's this need to find a romantic partner because then it's somebody who is loving you because of that thing that makes you other, if that makes sense. Like, it's like, oh, well, it's all worth it because now I found someone who is giving me the things that I've been told I'm never going to have. I've been told I'm never going to have love and a healthy relationship and stuff like that. And then, of course, you know, when you're young, very few of your relationships are healthy, but...
Yeah, even the healthy ones are unhealthy. And and that's such a bad place to start any relationship from, right? Hey, do you think you might fix me in the next 3 to 6 months?
Sadly and tragically, it will not give you the very thing that you are looking for.
Yeah.
In fact, it will like repel it.
Like I was also applying that kind of logic to friend groups as well. Like, yeah, we're going to be like best gay friends and go and do gay shit.
We only need one thing in common, and that's we're gay, and that's enough to sustain a friendship for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Who cares if our values don't align?
Right? It's like, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but like earlier in life, like in my early 20s, people would try and set me up with their friends, and it was just like, you're both gay. I'm like, we're not into each other even a little bit. Like, several times it's like, we can't even stand to be in the same room as each other. What on earth were you thinking?
So I have this thing and everyone assumes that I'm overly judgmental because maybe I am. And so people like never buy me presents and also never set me up with people. They just assume I'm going to hate them. So I haven't had that.
Do you often hate them when you were set up with people?
No, I'm just like, I think I was very, despite everything that I've just said about like trying to fall in love with any old stranger that I met, just very black and white in my thinking when I was younger and like, yes, no, yes, no.
Well, yeah, because when you're 18 to 23 or whatever, you know everything. You know everything there is to know. Everything you say is 100% right all the time.
I kind of miss that sometimes.
That confidence,
well,
that
just,
sheer
that
bullheadedness.
assuredness of like, yes, this is what I'm going to do, and I see no flaws in this plan.
Or even, this is who I am as a person, and this is immutable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, see, this is it. This is the indecision of being an adult.
I know, right? Because in the time it was great, but also that self-confidence and assuredness is exactly what puts you in situations where you have to learn lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what teaches you to second guess yourself about everything. But constantly. I don't know, sometimes leaping before you look is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe. I think maybe, I'm just going to put it out there, in 2023, I'm going to make some major fuck-ups in my life.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, I think I've been too like, maybe this will happen and maybe this will happen. Maybe I just won't do anything because otherwise something will happen. I think I need to be a bit more like, yeah, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah. I wish that the consequences of your fuck-ups are humorous and awkward as opposed to disastrous.
I mean, maybe.
And then you get like a book deal out of it. 2023, the year I fucked up.
Okay, so maybe we need to move away from this conversation.
Sure.
And move back to fitting in. So like, did you ever find that place or did you just learn to make do?
I mean, I have bars that I like to go to. There are things that I enjoy about them. I'm like, this is what I look for in a bar. And I go to them and I'm usually there with friends or whatever. So I guess in a way I do feel like I fit in because I'm like comfortable at those bars. But I think it's less about me wanting to fit in than it is about me spending time in a place I like to enjoy spending time. It's less about me needing to fit the bar and it's about the bar needing to fit what I'm looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess on that then, Did you ever feel the need to change who you were or to present in a different way in order to fit in?
We had touched on earlier that there was a point that I was like, I'm too much for people. So when I would go on dates with people, I'd like tone it down and just be like, oh, hello. Yes. What a friendly conversation we're having. I use a neutral tone of voice. That makes me sound like a crazy person.
I don't get excited about anything. Yeah.
Oh, I very much enjoy that. That was funny. Thank you. Anyone who knows me knows that my laugh is very loud and abrasive. And I love to, do voices and like use all of my register. But I'd be like, oh, hi. Yes, I'm Neil. I'm a normal person. Just a normal old human.
Just ignore the fact I was a theater major. And it's funny, isn't it? Because, I had the same experience in that a lot of times I'd be like, tone it down. Don't say what you're really thinking. Just be like, yeah, cool, good. And like, what part of my brain thought that was going to work?
I know. I just had this realization that it was like the same mechanism that you use when you're like with family that you aren't out to or like in a neighborhood that you don't necessarily feel safe in, that you like change your behavior so as to like fly under the radar. But like, that's a terrible idea for dating because eventually you're going to have to like be yourself at some point.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think it's just a terrible idea for everything. Maybe not everything. Like if you were hiring a car in Bolivia, but like if you were on like a job interview, if you're with family and stuff, like you should feel safe and comfortable and able to be yourself. And I mean, I know that's in an ideal world I'm talking about, but like sometimes you've just got to push through and be like, if you don't like this, then tough fucking luck.
Yes.
And especially in dating, you should just be like, you need to figure out if you hate me now because I'm not wasting my time. Unless you want to fuck in the bathroom.
This is what this is specifically for, to see if we can stand to be around each other. No? Okay, let's go fuck in the bathroom and go our separate ways.
And then you better forget my name. Yeah, that's how we should approach dating. Like, I had 5 terrible dates last week. Yes, that must mean I'm closer.
It's a numbers game, surely. Oof, dating is the fucking worst.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. I feel like 'cause I'm one of those people that you need to spend at least 365 hours with me to understand when I'm being serious and when I'm joking. So on a first day, everyone just thinks I'm just being horrible, but I'm being hilarious.
Well, 2 things can be true.
No, this is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I have definitely, along those lines, I've definitely been on dates where it's like, oh, you do not understand my humor at all. Oh, okay. You don't understand that I'm joking, even though I'm saying things in a very normal tone of voice.
And what do you do in those situations as well? Like, do you say, oh, by the way, I'm joking? Because then it just becomes labored and it feels like
no,
really...
I just get through the night and then never see them ever again. Because if he doesn't laugh at my jokes, there's no future for us.
No, I know, but like in the moment, should you try and smooth things over or... Yeah,
no, then what I do when I realize that he doesn't understand when I'm joking is I will just say untrue things, not untrue things, but like say things for the sake of saying something just to see if he gets it. Like I just keep pushing the envelope a little bit just to see where he...
I'm going to need examples.
I'm trying to like... I guess you could say it's lying or whatever, but I'll just like say innocuous things.
You could say it's lying.
One could call it lying. Like I'll say things not for the point of being funny anymore, but just to like, I say things jokingly or like as a joke, but not to be funny, just to see if he realizes if I'm joking or not.
Yeah, this isn't an example. I
know. Okay. So I don't know, like I can't think of specifics, but it'd be something along the lines of like, oh, he's not understanding my humor. So then, we'll be talking about going to the grocery store or something. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, the last time I went to the grocery store, I just had an absolute fit in the cereal aisle because they didn't have the cereal that I wanted. I like had a full-on tantrum on the floor just to see if he understands that isn't true.
Anyway, I think we were at some point in talking about fitting in, not fitting in. Oh, yeah, because then we got to dating and then we got to thing. Shall we go to our lost space?
Yeah.
So, switch flipped, and suddenly you weren't all that bothered about hooking up or finding the love of your life in bars, and you were more about friendship and hanging out with your friends and letting off steam.
And if an attractive gentleman decided to buy me a drink, sure. I didn't wear a sign that's like, don't talk to me if you don't already know me.
Well,
But
I don't know.
it
Reverse
wasn't-
psychology could have worked.
Oh. Yeah, but the type of guy that would see that as a challenge is the worst sort of guy.
Yeah, that is a good point.
That would only draw to you the most toxic of people.
But think about the power trip you could go on.
Oh, that's very true. I do enjoy power trips.
Yeah, to just give that kind of ego-fueled man blue balls for a whole evening.
Yeah, and cockiness doesn't work on me. I appreciate confidence, but cockiness turns me off very quickly. So if a guy's like, oh yeah, I can bet I could convince you, I'm like, don't talk to me.
Yeah. I think I'm always so shocked that someone's showing interest in me that I'm not able to tell the difference between cockiness and confidence. I'm just like, oh, you're still trying?
Sit
This
there
is weird.
wide-eyed.
What's going on? How is this happening? Yeah.
Am I on TV? What is this?
Yeah, and then it's like, well, you've put in this much effort. I might as well throw you a bone.
So to speak.
Yeah, boom ching. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So you were at this point in your life. Oh, we really must stay on topic. And so where does Badlands come into this? And tell me about Badlands.
So Badlands was a bar in the Castro that for the longest time was one of the only bars that had a proper dance floor. So it was very much a like clubby kind of bar. It was like you go, you get shit-faced, you dance, make some poor choices in the bathroom, et cetera, et cetera.
And how sweaty was the dance floor?
It was fairly sweaty.
That's good.
I think only a couple people had taken their shirts off, but it was still fairly sweaty.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that's the right amount of sweaty.
Yes, I do like a sweaty dance floor.
Delicious. But it was also just like so messy. There was always drama that happened whenever you went, to the point that it got the nickname Sadlands. There was one point before I even went, I was walking past it. I was leaving a friend's house to go catch the train home. And I walked past it. There's a guy standing outside on the curb. He was like 6'3", muscular, blonde. Like he looked like he could play Thor. And he was standing on the curb sobbing, just sobbing. And it was like, I don't know, something about it was like my boyfriend's cheating on me tears. I got very much that vibe.
Oh, can you just give me an example of what my boyfriend's cheating on me tears look like and sound like?
There's the sobbing, and then there's a lot of the, and then he just
Okay, all right, I think I'm with you. Okay, yeah. So there's like a choking of your words. Yeah, okay.
And then he had a friend out there with him who was trying to console him, who was also like very tall and very muscular. And I was like, if that bar did that to him, I don't know if I can survive it personally, but we'll see what happens. It's the place where as soon as you bring it up, someone's like, oh God, here's this like ridiculous thing that happened to me at Badlands. So you approached and there was a very angry twink at the door because there was a cover charge, which is very unusual in San Francisco. Like bars generally do not have cover charges. It would only be if there was like an event happening at the bar.
Yeah.
But this was every night. It was like a $5 cover charge. There was this like, prissy little twink always at the door. And if you weren't hot enough, he would let you know it in his tone of voice and his face. And you walk in, and immediate to your left was a little hallway that if you like went that way, it led to the bathroom and the coat check. But just past that was like another hallway that had like 3 urinals in it and was always very dark. And it was just deemed the piss room.
Wait, it was a hallway? Did it
Yes.
lead to anywhere else, or was it a dead end?
No, it was open on both ends. Like you could walk through
Oh,
it.
okay.
And just like the stories that like a friend of mine, the way he tells it, he was waiting in line for the bathroom and then someone just sort of like materialized out of the shadows and was just like, hey, do you want to come in here? You can piss anywhere you want. My friend was like, no, thanks. And he's like, oh, okay. And then just like disappeared again into the shadows. Like it was such a ridiculous place. It was, oh God. Anyway.
So it was a place that was notorious.
Yes, very much so.
And so did that put you off wanting to go?
It did for a while, yes. We also have found out, some of us sooner rather than later, that they were also pretty racist there.
Oh.
Like they wouldn't hire black people, and it seemed that the people at the bouncer and the angry twink at the door were encouraged to like dissuade black people from coming in.
Oh.
Yeah. They also would do, they called them cutie coupons, where like somebody's job was to like walk around the Castro and approach attractive twinks and be like, here's this coupon, you can get into Badlands for free, to sort of like shore up the number of attractive people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I learned about this like 4 years after having lived in the city, because I was still in school and this guy in my class was like, oh yeah, I got a cutie coupon from Badlands. So like, I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Obviously I wasn't being handed any.
So wait, why are we talking about this awful place?
Yes. But I don't know. It just was like an institution in a way. It was like this place where sometimes you just ended up there, but if you were open to the kind of night where like emotions ran high, drama happened, like every so often people, and especially the gays, are like, I just need some drama tonight. Like I just want to have a ridiculous night. And this was the place that you could go and do that.
And so that only ever happened to you once? Or were you being dragged along by a friend?
Yes. So I was hanging out with a friend and we stopped at this other bar because a coworker was having a going away party because he and his boyfriend were moving to New York or whatever. And it was a themed party, and the theme was bow ties. And I was very upset. That's a terrible theme.
Well, I mean, on the other hand, in their defense, it's an easy theme to meet. Like, at least it wasn't like underwater mermaids and scuba diving, where you have to go and like buy some crap that you're never going to use ever again. Like, at least it's just a bow tie.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's a crappy theme.
So what would your going away party be?
I feel like I would like stage a funeral or something.
Oh.
And like have people give speeches.
Oh, but then make them like wear suits and stuff.
Yeah, why not?
Oh,
I'm worth
that's
it.
a lot of faff. That's a lot of faff.
No, I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
Okay, anyway, so there was this going away.
So we went there, and then we were going to go to another bar and hang out, just the two of us. And he's like, hey, why don't we go to Badlands? I was like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah, come on, it'll be fun. So I went to Badlands. And like, again, there was the very angry twink at the door that was like, I instantly don't feel welcomed here, but let's see what happens. And then immediately too, there were like 20-somethings drunkenly like screaming at each other and like stumbling over each other to get from one end of the bar to the other. And
I should just say for people listening to this, because this isn't a video podcast, Neil is currently gesticulating wildly.
I do that. And I remember at one end of the bar, there was this guy who he gave off very creepy energy and was like looking very intently at specific people at the bar ordering drinks.
And so that's the guy you went home with?
Yeah. I wish. No. I was like, oh. The thing is, too, where he was positioned, you saw him like as soon as you walked in, if you were like looking at the bar. Also, can I just say, it is a failure of the English language that the place where you order the drinks and the building are both called the bar. Because when you're talking about it, it gets very confusing.
The bar's bar. Yes, this is a good point. Who should we write to about this?
Shakespeare? I don't know. Dear Mr. Shakespeare.
Yeah, I think he's busy.
He's busy being dead. I don't know. I mean, like, if we had the French Academy, like the French to dictate what is and isn't French, we could talk to them. But
yeah, I feel like this in the Oxford Dictionary, but I mean, what makes them better than Webster, right? Anyway, the bar, this man ogling everyone.
So just like immediately, I'm like, I'm in the thick of it now. So we got drinks, and then my friend and I went out to the dance floor. That was the first time I heard the song "I Don't Care" by Iconopop.
Oh,
which is it's a fantastic song. I love it.
The song's called "I Love It." Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
This is why I'm not good on first dates, by the way. Just if you needed any more information about that.
Fortunately, because it was just my friend and me, we didn't have drama, but I was very Christopher Isherwood, very I am a camera, and just like saw the deterioration of relationships all around me.
That is good.
It was intense. And the dance floor was pretty packed too. And it wasn't terribly big, but it was definitely full. And there's just like people screaming, people on the verge of hooking up, all of it happening all around me. And my friend and I were doing that dancing where we're like dancing with each other, but then also sort of like scanning the crowd. Like, oh, is there someone that I want? Oh, no. Oh, yes. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Don't get too close to them. They're going to elbow me soon when they start having a fight.
Essentially like, oh, he looks like he's about to throw up. So we're just going to shuffle on over this way.
And so tell me, expectations versus reality. So it was notorious. You had a vision in your mind of what this place was. How did that live up to what it really was?
The atmosphere did. And like the stories that I had heard, I saw them happening around me. But again, because I was there with my friend. And, you know, this was in I think my early 30s. So I was slightly less dramatic than I had been in the past.
Only a smidge, right?
Just by increments. Because it was just my friend and me, and we weren't fighting over a man or something like that. Like we didn't have drama happen to us. It just like happened around us. Like I felt like we were the eye of the storm of all this messiness going on around us. And it was one of those things that's like, I'm glad I did it once, but I don't think I ever need to do it ever again.
And so then when you heard that it had closed, what was your response?
Well, it closed in 2020. So it wasn't a surprise, but it also was. It's one of because it had been there as long as I had, even longer. Like it had been in San Francisco longer than I had at that point. And I was just like, how could it have closed? Because it was always busy every time I was there. Like that night that I saw the Thor lookalike sobbing, it was like maybe a Wednesday night, and the place was packed. So it's like, I don't think it was for lack of business. I don't know. So it was in 2020. So you just like are expecting things to close. Yeah. But also it's just like, really, that place? Wow.
And so what do you think San Francisco has lost?
I honestly believe that there is a place, like a time and a place where it's like, it's okay to have a messy night. And it was nice to have a place where it's like, oh, nobody will notice because everybody else is also having a messy night. So there's sort of this like anonymity, this like safe space to be a hot mess.
Or a human urinal by the sounds of things.
Yes, which also there are other bars where you can find that. Like that's not particular to, you know. So yeah, I mean like it's nothing profound, but I think that it was kind of comforting to know that there was a place that if you wanted to be messy, it was perfectly fine because that was the place where you could do it.
Yeah. So, usually at the end of my conversation, I will ask my guest what advice they would give to their younger self. And I'm not sure whether I should be asking you to give advice to Neil that was at Badlands or Neil when he first moved to San Francisco. So I'm going to leave that one open to you.
Okay. You can also do both.
No,
it's your podcast. You can cheat your own
you've got to do one.
I do it on mine. I cheat all the time. I think the more helpful advice would be to myself who just moved to San Francisco. And that would be, it's very trite, but it is good advice. So just like, don't worry about it. Just like, go have fun. Just be yourself and have fun. And in a few years, there are going to be apps that make it a lot easier to hook up. So just hang in there. Hang in there, baby.
And And you should know now you are a squishy femme bear. I mean, surely that's the advice you give, right?
Yes. I imagine myself at like 19, just like, oh, who am I? What am I doing? Or maybe it'd probably be like 22, 23, because that's when I was like going to the bars and having more of that crisis. That like older me coming through, like the clouds part, and older me comes down and it's just like, you are a squishy femme bear. Embrace it, girl. Do your thing.
This is my decree from here on out.
That would be really helpful advice. Because now, I mean, like, on an occasion, I love to do a bit of a smoky eye and a bold lip and paint my nails. And I feel like that was so much more of a statement, 15-ish years ago. I do the math of how long I've lived in this city and it makes me feel very old. But like when I first moved here, that would have been so much more of a statement. Whereas now it's like, oh yeah, wear lip, paint your nails, do whatever you want, girl. That to me is so much more fun. Have the freedom to just sort of like be yourself. It's hard. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. I'm like, I'm always confident in my body and who I am every moment of every day, because that's not true at all. But it's definitely more true, which is nice.
That is nice. And to take us back to the beginning of the conversation, you may have noticed at points during our chat that I've stopped listening and I've not been paying attention. And that's because I have been trying as desperately as I can to figure out a word that starts with R to talk about Riverside. And I think I've come up with it.
Okay.
So, the fabulous Neil, who was afraid of his femme qualities and wasn't able to embrace them, he was too raunchy for Riverside. Oh, you hate it. Okay, fine.
Okay, I don't hate it, but it's just... thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm not gonna pick apart this gift that you gave me on your own show. That would be very mean of me.
Do you have any memories of Badlands or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, I would love to hear from you. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories of queer clubbing, but I need your help. Go to lostSpacesPodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space to tell me all about what it is you got up to. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where my handle is Lost Spaces Pod. And also make sure that you listen to Neil's show, FMKLit, where every episode, Neil and his co-host Claire read 2 romance novels, 1 queer and 1 straight, and then they play Fuck, Marry, Kill with the characters. Sounds good, right? They can also be found on Facebook at FMKLit Pod. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told other people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.